And this week we are bringing on the one and only, the legend in door-to-door sales, Lenny Gray. So he's been doing door-to-door sales for a long time. He is also the CEO of Rove Pest Control and D2D Millionaire, where now he gets to help business owners and sales reps really learn to grow and scale a door-to-door sales team. So super cool. Not only that, but Lenny is the author of 4 books, you guys. That's incredible. And one of those is his best-selling Door-to-Door Millionaire series. So Lenny, with that being said, I'm going to just jump straight into having you jump into our training.
Yeah, let's do it. Rock on. So thank you very much for that nice intro. And I am super excited to be here. You know, I just met Brad. It's been like a month or so ago. I'd heard of Brad. I heard of RepCard. And the more I've gotten to know Brad and the team, the more excited I am about what they've got going on. And obviously their network that's utilizing RepCard. It's awesome. So I'm very passionate about door to door, and not just about teaching you how to sell the lights out, but also how to sell ethically, how to sell with integrity. Because I look at this, I'm not just great at door to door where I started, but I'm also a business owner. So I've got to look at it at that lens of, it's not just about selling, but it's about selling long-term business. And so hopefully that helps you if you're just a sales rep right now. Hopefully that helps you with retention. That helps you get paid what you're, all that sacrifices you're making that Brad was talking about earlier, all those difficult days, those hardships that you go through. The idea is if you're going to be with somebody and you're going to sell somebody, you might as well make sure they stick. I'll tell you just quickly, my 3rd year selling, I was with Orkin Pest Control. I was just doing summer sales in Jacksonville, Florida. I sold 674 pest control accounts. When the back end check came at the beginning of the year, so like in January, February, I got paid for 668 of those 674 accounts. So I had 6 people that fell off. It was less than 1% of what I'd sold. That's the expectation. Wow. That's what I teach, is not just how to sell a lot, but how to make sure you get paid for what you're selling as well. So, and I would say this, those 6 people that canceled, I guarantee you, because it was in Florida, they died because they were old. I probably sold a few old people. That's the only reason they could cancel on me, is because they were dead. Okay, I'm making that up, but it seems the right thing to say. So let's, I want to talk about this idea of integrity-based selling for a minute. And I'd be curious to hear from you all. Maybe you can put it in the chat and I can kind of follow along if I can watch this and pay attention to what I'm saying at the same time. But I'm curious, like, what are the biggest lies that reps tell on the doors? I've got a few that I'd like to talk about. Like how do reps fabricate on the doors? Like what are they saying? And what I've found in my experience is they say things that you actually don't need to say, or aren't helping you the way maybe you think they're helping you. And I get this. You don't have to come right out. I'll tell you some of the biggest lies I told when I was new to it, because that's how I was trained to talk, until I realized and wrap my head around things where it's like, I actually don't need to say those things. It doesn't hurt my production. It actually helps me to be upright and honest with people. And so I'm passionate about like trying to, it's like weeding in the garden, right? Like sometimes you just pull off the top thing and the weed doesn't get all the way pulled, and then it just comes right back. Like I'm really passionate about weeding out like all of these false truths that reps say, and we say it because that's how we're taught. Or we look at maybe some of the big hitters and say, well, she says it or he says it, so I guess that makes it okay. Like that's not the case. And so we want to debunk some of that today. I think this is just a fun topic. I'll start with kind of the no soliciting sign piece, right? We all go up, and my general rule of thumb is, if you're new to door and you go knocking on a door and there's any trepidation in you about this no soliciting sign, my rule of thumb number 1 is don't knock it. Okay? Because what happens is if you're a little, I mean, door to door can be a little frightening for new reps to begin with, but if you have any kind of hesitation because they have a no soliciting sign, like, prospects can sense that. It is like blood in the water for sharks. They know that you are scared out of your mind, that you knocked on their door, and they'll call you out on it. And you don't know what to say, and you say all these lies that I'll talk about here in a second. And it makes it that much worse. And so the idea is, if you don't feel comfortable knocking no soliciting sign, don't knock it. Now, do I knock no soliciting signs? Absolutely I do. But what I do is I don't do the two biggest, here's the two biggest things. This always cracks me up because I'll knock doors with reps and I'll see them do that time and time again. So, and we've all been there, right? Where we strategically place our body where it looks like we couldn't see the no soliciting sign, right? And so then when somebody says, oh, don't you see my sign? You kind of do one of these. Oh my gosh, I didn't even see that sign, right? Like everybody like wants to do that to where they're like hiding. And the sign, right, is like in flashing neon lights and you pretend like you didn't see it. That's not a good way to start a no soliciting sign conversation with somebody. Or the second thing is the classic that everybody uses, and that is, oh, well, I'm not selling anything, right? But you're selling something. Like we all know, like, and again, keep in mind, I've been doing this for almost 30 years. People have been having their doors knocked for 30 years. They know all these things that reps try to say or manipulate, you know, the approach and that type of thing, and it just doesn't work. So what do I do? What do I teach? When I knock on a door with a no soliciting sign, I say, hey there, my name's Lenny, I'm the so-and-so. I noticed your no soliciting sign, but the reason I wanted to stop by is I wanted to tell you what I was doing with Chad and Jenny next door, whatever, you know, whatever their names are. And so I'm actually going to call that sign out right away, and I'm not going to hide behind it or pretend like I didn't see it or tell somebody I'm not selling anything. Okay, so that's kind of one of the first ones. I would say the other one that is always fun to me is the people that make up names. So you make up a name, right? Where, and this happened to me my first year knocking doors. I was knocking with, you know, one of the experienced reps, kind of our big hitter in our office, and he kept saying, you know, the Johnsons, we take care of the Johnsons down the street, and he'd said some other names. And so he's like, okay, I want to see you do your approach. And I said, okay, so where do the Johnsons live? So I know where I'm pointing and that. And he's like, I'm just making that up. Like, I'm sure there's a Johnsons that lives around here somewhere. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Number one, yeah, that's lying. But number two, I was like, he didn't understand what I've learned over the years, the power of relevant name dropping. So it's not just name dropping, but it's being relevant with the name drop. And what I mean by that is when you knock on the door of somebody and they, again, you have two strikes against you. They don't know you, they didn't invite you. And so if you don't have some kind of common ground with that person, it's really easy for them to either disbelieve you or dismiss you. So what I like to do is I like to actually get names. If I can't use a customer name, I will ask almost everybody that I end a conversation with, at least pleasantly or somewhat pleasantly. I'll end the conversation with something like this. So they've turned me down, I'm not selling them. I call those Tom Cruises, they're Mission Impossible, right? And I say, okay, so here's the deal. Appreciate your time. Maybe we can take care of you another time. Again, my name was Lenny. What was your name? Brad. Okay, nice to meet you, Brad. Have a great day. If I don't have a customer nearby that I think that next door neighbor of Brad's that I'm going to go knock on right now, that I don't have a customer that I can name drop, because that's the most powerful name drop if you actually service somebody. But I'm still going to go next door and say, hey there, my name's Lenny. I'm the home service guy. I was actually just talking to Brad next door. The reason I'm out here is because, and I didn't say anything about Brad being a customer. I sold Brad, but just the fact that I had a conversation with somebody that person's likely to know, that changes everything. Here's the science behind it. When somebody knows that you know who they know, they're going to treat you more favorably. Okay, and we've all had this experience, right? You've been on an airplane before, you've been traveling, you're on a bus or whatever, and you strike up a conversation with the person next to you, and all of a sudden you find common ground, like, oh my gosh, you know Jill, I know Jill. We actually have this connection, and next thing you know, I'm having this great conversation with somebody I never knew before, but because we had a common person that we both knew, it ends up like binding us somehow, like in human nature. That's just what we are. We look for commonalities amongst each other. So if you're just name dropping to throw out the Smiths and the Johnsons, you're really you're not helping your cause. And so that's one of those fabrications that it doesn't help you. It's a wasted movement. It's not something you need to do anyway. But if you can gather names that people are likely to know, that actually changes the nature of the conversation. So, okay. So those are two kind of fun ones. Is there any other ones that came up?
Yeah, there's a couple more in there.
That's
There's
so
one
good.
about looks like
So good,
solar,
man.
like you won't get a bill from the utility company, but that's not true.
Okay. Here's a fun one that reminded me. So we had a solar guy in my neighborhood, and I love talking to door-to-door reps. I mean, as you can imagine, and I most of the time I don't even tell them who I am. My mom lives like 7 houses down from me. Sometimes I had to tell her, Mom, quit telling people the door-to-door millionaire lives 7 houses away, because I like to actually have that conversation organically and talk to them and give them advice. Like, I can't tell you how many times they've come to my door and I said, why don't you go about it like this? And, try to teach them a few things while I'm there, because that's what I'm passionate about doing. But we had a solar rep, and he came to the door and he's like, yeah, hey, I'm with Rocky Mountain Power. And I knew he was not with Rocky Mountain. I 100% knew that. I was like, okay, so how long you been with Rocky Mountain? And what office are you out of? And he's kind of started back, well, I'm not actually, and it didn't start off right at all. So sometimes we fabricate who we represent, and we just don't need to do it. Like, people, trust me, for 30 years, they've been hearing all the BS that sales reps say. Be different, be honest, be truthful, call out the no soliciting sign, drop relevant names, say exactly who you are and who you represent. That doesn't just change the game for you, but it changes the game for door-to-door in general for hopefully the next 3 decades. Because now you have most homeowners nowadays have bought something from somebody going door to door. I will tell you that. And I sound like a dinosaur, I know. Back in my day, when we were walking uphill to school in the snow both ways, what happened is you'd spend a lot of time with people and they just wouldn't buy from you because they didn't believe that you could buy something standing on somebody's doorstep, or they wouldn't give you a credit card number. Like, there's no way, I have no idea who you are. So times have changed for the better in some regards, but you've got to understand that what you're doing today and how you represent yourself in the door-to-door industry will impact maybe generations away. Maybe it's your own sons or your own nephews or nieces that are out doing this type of a thing. How you present yourself and the door-to-door community in general is so powerful. You can do a lot for good, and you can do just as much for bad, just depending on how you want to be and how you want to interact with people. Okay, that was my little tangent on just selling with integrity. Was there something else, Jill? Did I miss something that you were saying was?
No, that was like dead on. I love that. There's another one that say, yeah, they're over promising and under delivering. The less unnecessary fluff you put into it, the less false expectation and liability. I love that.
Yeah, that's so true, because a lot of times I call it a yes ma'am, no ma'am, or sometimes we call it a sales prostitute if I'm going to go there. Okay, I'll go another step. Sometimes people call it a whore on the door. This is just getting totally R-rated. It went from PG to now we're R-rated. But a lot of times when you're just willing to do whatever it takes to make the sale, like, oh, you need your dishes washed? Oh yeah. Oh, your dog, whatever, you need me to walk your dog? Or we try to become this, I'll do whatever it takes to close this deal. I will tell you, as from the business owner standpoint, I don't want that customer. Like, I don't want customers that have these super high expectations that I know on my technical side, they can't come and fulfill that anyway, because their expectations have just been oversold, right? They have these super high expectations. So we got to be very careful to undersell. One thing in the pest control industry, I'll tell you, and it relates to a lot of industries, is one of the things that I always tell my reps, this is like, if we have any pest control people on here, a big secret in pest control is this: if you don't see it, don't say it. And what I mean by that, if you don't see a bug or a particular bug or bug activity, you don't talk about that bug. Because if you do, you actually devalue any need that they may have, or the idea of getting preventative pest control, like getting pest control without actually needing it right there. If you start talking about all these bugs and building up all that you're going to do, how many times have we found ourselves, if we're selling pests, when somebody says, well, I just want you to take care of the spiders. I don't need all this extra treatment. What does it cost just for spiders? That means you're overselling. You're trying to compound what you're doing, when really, if we just focus on what we're seeing and what is being said to us versus trying to oversell, trust me, if somebody wants to know if we're going to take care of wasps as well, they will ask. If somebody wants to know about mice, they will ask. If somebody wants to know about ancillary services or products, they will ask if it's important to them, and that's when you address it. So if you don't see it, don't say it. That's just a little nugget that I think is so important.
I love that one. Lenny, you talked about still knocking on doors with a no soliciting sign. We have a couple questions on how do you approach that on a no soliciting sign, or like a no knock neighborhood? How do you approach that?
Yeah, so I think two different things, right? I think we have to be careful if it's a no soliciting neighborhood or a gated community. I will tell you, My second year knocking, I knocked with a guy that had been, I don't know, 7 or 8 years in. His name was Lance. Lance was from, he lived in a trailer park in southern Utah, and he was proud of it. He was a trailer park guy. And Lance, he had this beater truck, and we would roll up to like these gated communities or find construction. We found creative ways to get in to these communities. I would hesitate doing that if you are not an experienced rep or have that radar on you that says, I got to get out of here. Because we would never get kicked out of these places. Most of them were still under construction, so they weren't truly gated. But we would know if we had the wrong conversation with somebody. It wasn't just like, let's run down the street 3 houses. It was, we got to leave. And because my rule of thumb is this, you can get asked to leave a neighborhood multiple times, but you can only get kicked out once. Because once you've been kicked out, and especially if you've been, police escorted or security escorted out, like you don't go back. Like that's foolish. So you have to be very careful about those. I mean, to me, if it's a no soliciting neighborhood or a gated community, I'm not going to have new reps in there at all. Like I just think that's got danger and bad, bad intentions written all over it. I'm more or less like, if we want to go that route, it better be somebody who knows their stuff. And if I have customers in those areas and I can knock on next door neighbors and start to build my wealth of people that know people and using my name dropping techniques, then I think that's a little bit of a different story as well.
I love that. What are some other ways that we can gain rapport with a customer as we find that common ground? Like, what are some of your tips there?
So I do not ice break with people. Okay, so let me give you this. This might go maybe against what we're talking about here. I do feel like, again, and I still knock doors, so I understand, like, somebody can't say, well, 30 years ago, like I'm still knocking doors. I still go out with reps. I still knock myself. I still am very much aware of what's going on out there. I think nowadays more so is people, because they have been bombarded for years and years with door knockers. I think the cut to the chase and just tell me why you're here, what you're offering, like what you're doing. I think the shorter and the sweeter, the better. The first chapter, or one of the first chapters, not the first chapter, but one of the first chapters of my first book, I talk about, I think the chapter's titled 45 Seconds. And the idea with 45 seconds is when somebody opens their door, you have about 45 seconds to talk to them uninterrupted to kind of, get your pitch out, get your initial approach, as I call it out. If I had to rewrite my book right now, my book was released, I think, in 2012, 2013. So we're over a decade old. Now it would change to like 20 to 30 seconds. I think this is proven that the attention spans of people over the last decade have shrunk significantly. And a lot of that has to do with social media and all these types of things and just the world we live in. So I think we have to be even more direct with people. And this whole idea of beating around the bush and, you have a beautiful garden here and all that stuff. Like, to me, it's like, no, I just want to get to business. So I have a 5-step initial approach. It's who you are, why you're there, what you're offering. You address a common concern, you conversational close. The idea is, the conversational close is to start a conversation with somebody. That's when we can ice break or see if somebody's willing to play the game, right? Are you willing to have a conversation with me or not? But I got to get to those other 4 steps before I conversationally close. So I number one, don't act like I'm wasting somebody's time. And number two, most importantly, I'm not wasting my own time with people, like I said, that are Tom Cruises, that they're unsellable anyway.
I got something to throw in there too. Lenny, a question for you. What would you say to the people training around the idea of like trying to get like customer engagement within the first, 5-10 seconds with a question or with a head nod or, things like that? You mentioned 45 and maybe dumbing it or pulling it back to 30 seconds. Would you recommend what are your thoughts around like asking a question or a simple yes, no, something at the beginning of the sale to try to like gauge engagement?
Yeah, I feel like for me, Brad, everybody's worth 20 to 30 seconds of my time. And so I don't really vary from what works, right? I've got a system, I've got a process that's been working for decades, so I just stick with it.
Okay.
So I don't like the idea, especially I don't like the idea of asking a yes no question. Anyways, I kind of avoid those. There's a few very rare circumstances where yes no makes sense, but for the most part, I don't want to ask yes no or even ask a question. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes reps make is they knock on the door, somebody answers, and they say, "Hey, how's it going today?" A few reasons why that's not very good. Number one is the thing about high level door to door reps is they know how to control a conversation and keep control throughout. Even though somebody, and the best of the best, what we know how to do is make people think they're in control when we're the one pulling all the strings, right? Like we are the puppet masters because we're getting people to go exactly where we want them to go. So if getting control of a conversation is so important, and not just getting it, but keeping it, the minute somebody opens the door, again, you have two strikes against you. They don't know you. They didn't invite you. They open the door and you say, "Hey, how's it going today?" You've given up control. And a lot of times what you hear right back is, "Oh, you're with, oh yeah, solar, no, we're good." And you don't even have, you didn't give yourself a chance. Or you're already like 5.5 feet deep into your 6 foot hole. It's really hard to dig out of that. So for me, I would rather make a statement right away. And I would just state exactly, again, who I am, what I'm offering, why I'm there, address a common concern, and hit my conversational close. I feel like everybody deserves 20 to 30 seconds of my time.
Gotcha. Love it. Thank you.
Got it. Okay. Where else are we going with this?
Let's go. So I'm looking at the comments here. What about no knock neighborhoods?
Can I talk about qualifying for a second? I I could
Yeah,
talk I could talk for days about all this stuff. You guys know this. Like I have got just hours of stuff that I'd want to talk to you about. I did see something about how do we kind of determine qualified leads versus non-qualified leads. So this is my just a high level overview of my 6-step sales flow process. Okay, my 6-step sales flow process is basically we do the initial approach, and we kind of talked about that, right? We have these 5 steps. Then what I have to determine is who is qualified for my time or not. And I'll talk about what my 5 main qualifiers are. I've got 5 qualifiers that I basically reverse engineered every sale I'd ever made on the doors and said, what has been common about all of those sales? And a lot of times it's 2 or 3 that I'll have in a sale. It can just be 1, that's fine. If somebody qualifies on one of these things, then at least I know they're worth my time to go to my 3rd step, which is value building. And once I value build with somebody, right, and kind of explain the price, go through what we do, show the pricing, then I'm going to close. After closing, I can expect objections, right? I can expect concerns. So we're going to overcome those objections. We're going to reclose. Closing and overcoming objections is cyclical. But then once somebody agrees and says, you know, I've closed them and they finally say, okay, yeah, tomorrow works out great, let's get started or whatever. Then what I do is I have a 13-point solidify the sale checklist. And that's how we go through the paperwork, we go through the agreement, we get all the, you know, check all my boxes that basically say, I want to make sure I get paid for 99% of my sales. And so that's kind of my path that I take. And I found that in that sales flow process, anywhere where you are, I don't care if you're knocking doors, if you're a CSR, if you're, you know, whatever you're doing, you're going business to business, like you can follow this same sales flow process and get better. Because for those of you that are team leads on here right now, or that are business owners, the worst advice or the laziest advice you can give your sales members or your sales team is, you know, they come to you and they're like, I'm not selling. Like the laziest advice ever I always hear is, well, just go work harder. Just go knock more doors, go talk to more people. That is so lazy. It's like, that could be part of the equation, don't get me wrong, and normally it is. But at the same time, where are they in this sales flow process? Where is the missing link in the chain or the kink in the hose? Is why aren't they? It's like, it goes back to what we just talked about. It's like, why can't I get my initial approach out? I can't even get through my first 5 steps. People won't give me 20 seconds. If I'm with a rep, I guarantee you, somebody opens the door and the rep's saying, hey, how's it going today? Hey, how are you doing?
They
Hey,
got their sunglasses on.
Lovely yard.
They're doing something goofy.
They have they're losing control right away. And now I can say, yes, you need to work harder, but you've got to quit asking a question when somebody opens the door. That's why you're losing people right away. So if you have an actual system, a process, And that's why what I teach is so valuable, because I'm like an ordinary guy. Like I'm not like this. You see these superstar sales reps, right? And everybody looks at them and they're like, I cannot replicate that. That is amazing. I cannot be that, what is his name? The Kenny dude, the has all the jokes and all these things. Like that dude's a unicorn.
Brooks.
Like, yeah, you can't. Like that dude is an absolute unicorn. I could try my whole life to be as funny and creative as him, and I'd fail every time. So to me, I'm kind of more like, everybody can learn a system and a process. Everybody can learn a 5-step initial approach. Everybody can learn 5 qualifiers to know if it's worth their time to continue talking. And I will get to those here in just a second. But that the idea is if you can learn a system and a process, and that's what your reps are being taught, then you can actually fix them where they're broken. Because it's like, yeah, you aren't able to close deals because you're running into people that say, just leave me your card. Just leave me your rep card. Okay, we'll do a little plug. Just leave me your card and get out of here, right? How do you overcome that? If you have a system, if you have a process for that, now you know how to do that, and you know where your reps need help, and that's so important. So my 5 qualifiers are this. Number 1 is if people ask you, how much is it? Okay, I've never sold anybody that hasn't, at one point of the conversation, I haven't had to reveal the price. And so I talk about this idea in my books about Black Friday, you know, this day after Thanksgiving, and what motivates people to go, you know, pitch a tent in the Best Buy parking lot because they get to save $100 on a flat screen. You know, I like, what motivates these crazy people to do this Black Friday shopping? Well, there's 3 elements of Black Friday that get people to act, and we can create a Black Friday experience on everybody's doorstep. And those 3 elements are, for a limited amount of time, with a limited amount of availability or goods and services, I can offer you something at a discounted price. If you can bring that to the doorstep, you're going to get a lot of people who have even this much interest will say, well, how much is that discount? What is that going to cost me? If you can generate that, you've got somebody who's qualified because they're asking a buying question. They're visualizing in their mind, this is going to cost me something. I need to find out how much that's going to cost me. So that's a big one if they ask how much. Normally, like I said, if you have a double or a triple qualifier, then you actually, it makes the probability of a sale even stronger. So how much is it? Second, if you observe a need or they admit to a need, more likely you're going to observe a need versus admitting to it. So if I'm in roofing, right, I'm going along, I've worked with roofing companies plenty, and I'm going along the middle of the road and I'm looking for, you know, stains, the black stains on the roof. I'm looking for the wear and tear, the granular loss. I'm looking for all those things as I'm walking down the road, because now I've observed a need. That automatically qualifies that person. Or if I'm in pest control, right, I can go see if there's spider webs in the eaves or ants in the yard. If I'm in lawn care, like I can see if they've got weeds in the yard or dead spots. Like I can observe a lot of times in industries, and I've coached 33 different home service verticals. So you know, a lot of times we can see it from the street, so we can even target knock. Like we could just knock doors where we see a need. We don't have to knock every door. But with some industries, you can't. What about house cleaning or carpet cleaning? Like I have no idea if somebody needs their house cleaned. I can't tell that from the street. So I have to knock on every door. That's okay. But I don't have what some of us in some of our industries have, almost a benefit, because we can see a need from the street. And that's a plus. Pressure washing, power spraying, window washing. We can see a lot of those things, you know, from the street as we're walking down, which is great. So if I see a need, that's certainly somebody who's qualified. What about somebody that does it themselves? We've all run into the DIYers, and I have a 6-step DIY process. Probably won't get into that today, but a 6-step DIY process. DIYers to me qualify because they already see the value in doing something that you're selling. So if they see the value in it, here, okay, biggest mistake with DIYers. I got to go off on this for a second. The biggest mistake reps make is they'll have somebody that does it themselves, and they'll try to talk them out of doing that. Okay, here's the secret. A lot of people that do it themselves, they actually enjoy doing what they do. Whether it's pest control or mowing their lawn or washing their windows, whatever it is, they actually enjoy doing it. And so think about that. Think about a hobby that you have. let's say it's golf, and I hate golf. Sorry for all you golf enthusiasts. I hate golf. It's a waste of my. I don't have time to golf, and I'm bad at it anyway. So I can use a pitching wedge. I found out that's the only club that I can use. Anyway, um, where was I going? Okay, so a DIYer, you got this hobby. You love to golf. What if I came golfing with you? You'd hate that. But what if I came golfing with you and every time you went to hit the ball, I said, no, 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 I got this. I'm going to hit the ball for you. You just follow it and go do your thing. Like that would be horrible. So sometimes let's think about the good old boy that's doing his own pest control, right? And he's got the overall, the Levi overalls, and he loves to go out in his yard and do his thing. And he loves to go out in the yard and do his thing because he's retired. Maybe his wife nags him a little bit and he's like, I got to get out of the house. I just got to do my pest control. That's what I do. And you come along and say, oh, no, you don't want to do your pest control. You'd much rather just sit in your recliner and die a slow death because you're not being active. Like, that's the worst thing you can do with DIYers. So try this instead. When somebody says they do it themselves, say, awesome, let me complement or let me supplement what you're doing by doing X, Y, and Z. Here's what I can do a little bit differently. I want you to continue to do what you do as a DIYer, but I'm going to just supplement what you're doing. So, how often you ask good questions, right? Like, how often are you doing? Oh, you get out here every week? Fantastic. Well, I'm just going to come by once a quarter, or I'm going to come by once a month. That's it. So you keep doing what you're doing. I'm just going to supplement that. That'll change your life with DIYers. Okay. So that's what the third one. The fourth one is if they already have it. So we're talking about switchovers. I've got a 7-step proven switchover process, but switchovers tell me, again, somebody sees value in the product or service you're offering. It's just up to you to talk to them about why your product or service is superior to what they're already getting. Doesn't just have to be about price either. Just a little tidbit there. Little secret, you don't just have to beat them on price. You can beat them on quality, value, all of those things as well. And then the last one, qualifier, number 5 to me is what I call indisputable facts. So indisputable facts could be a number of things. It could be the age of the home. It could be the weather. It could be what the home's made of. It could be if they have pets or kids, whatever that person, they can't argue with you about something. Maybe it's where their home is. Maybe it's around a wooded area, right? And there's ticks and fleas all over in wooded areas. So inevitably, because they live where their home is placed, they can't refute you to say, it's probably a good idea to get tick and flea control or mosquito control. Maybe they have a big pond in their backyard or a water feature or something. It's like if they cannot argue with facts. It's like you're building a case, right? It's like you're an attorney to say, well, because these homes are 23 years old, they've got the weep holes because they're made of brick, and they've got these ponds, that surround the neighborhood, which is, basically breeding ground for mosquitoes. Most of the neighbors do some kind of mosquito control, for instance. Like now they can't really argue with you. It's like, yeah, my home is that old. Yep, it is made of brick. Oh, yep, we do have that water feature. Now you're just building your case to where it's really difficult for somebody to refute you having a need, which again goes back to the second qualifier, which if you observe a need or they admit to a need or they realize they have a need, that gives me the green light to move forward. Now, I would say this. So if somebody says, yeah, we don't need it, whatever, and I'm trying to use my thing, and they don't even ask me the price. I say, well, it's going to be this huge discount. And then I do my Penguins of Madagascar, which is smile and nod, because that's what we do. And rather than interrupt ourselves and try to fill every last minute with words, right? And we ask a question, then we answer it ourselves rather than just smile and nod. And you just wait and you make it uncomfortable. And then they answer and they're like, I've tried 3 times with, it's going to be this huge discount. And I just get not interested. I know I'm out. Like there's Tom Cruise sitting in front of me. That's Mission Impossible. It's not going to work. I can confidently move on to the next door knowing they didn't qualify. I didn't see a need. There's no indisputable facts. They weren't biting on asking me the price. They don't have it. They don't do it themselves. I can move on to the next door, and that's okay. We don't win every door. What's most important is we win the doors where people are qualified. Knowing your qualifying ratio is one of the most important KPIs that you can know. Is how many people that I qualify do I close? Sorry, Brad, go ahead.
No, dude, this has been absolutely amazing. I just wanted to add that, like, again, we're in an industry where you're not supposed to win every door. You can win a door and not sell them. In baseball, you can have a quality at bat. You can foul off 8 pitches and strike out, and that's still considered what they call a quality at bat. It's something that they measure nowadays in baseball. Like, it's okay to not sell every house. You want to have the hunger and the desire to sell every door and knock every door like this is my next sale. that you want to keep sharp, but it's okay to push and to do your thing and to not sell the door, but walk away feeling like you won versus sitting there and fighting with Tom Cruise over and over, and to the point where you're just kind of pissed, they're pissed, they slam the door, and you walk away with this energy that's like, I just want to go sit on the curb.
Yeah.
Now we've talked a lot about the front part of the sale. We're closing in here on time. We've kind of done Q&A throughout. But if anybody wants to come on and talk to Lenny or something, we can try to fit that into the next 15 minutes here, next 15 minutes. But I wanted to talk, have you speak to solidifying the sale. You mentioned some processes to it. I think we dabbled on it. For those guys on the calls that maybe are selling now, they're over the hump of the initial approach, they're getting people to buy, but man, they're getting cancels, or there's nothing worse than waking up at 8 a.m. to a text from a homeowner. It's like, you know what? I thought about it and I just want to cancel. And you're just like, now I'm supposed to go knock doors with all this energy of like, and it's okay. And that's where the be grateful comes in that I talked about earlier, and understanding that that's going to happen. And that deters 99% of people, which gives you the opportunity to make a high income, opportunity. But let's talk about, from my experience on the doors, like solidifying the sell was a big part of my process. And I've never broken it down like you have. And so I want you to speak to that on how reps can solidify and take advantage of all that work they did over the last 10 minutes, the last hour, the appointment. Some sales are longer cycles. So anyways, let's jump to that.
Okay, I love it. So I love the quality at bat analogy as well. That is so like spot on. Like I always say to reps, it's like, I think what happens between your ears, between the doors is so important, because if you're thinking about why didn't I make that sale? How could I have overcome that objection better? How could I maybe qualify that person by asking the right kind of question? If you're actually constantly learning, like every door can be a quality at bat. I love that. I think that's a great way to put it. So thanks for teaching me, Brad. See, that's the thing about door to door. Like I'm 30 years in, for crying out loud, and I learn things from great people, and it's like I win. I'm supposed to be the guy who's giving all the. Now I just won today because Brad gave me a nice little nugget there, so I appreciate that. Let's talk about cancels, and I'll get into solidifying the sale. But let's talk about cancels, because here's the thing. I think there are acceptable cancellation numbers. I'll tell you what I think, and it's different for maybe some different industries, but I'll kind of give you a general sense. Because I think if a rep never has a cancel, they're not really, they're not being great at sales, right? They're probably just selling all the low-hanging fruit, and they're getting the laydowns, which we all got to do, right? We all got to, and I'll keep using baseball, Brad, because you're using baseball, but when we get that one right down the middle of the plate, like we all got to hit that one, right? But what about the one that's on the lower corner, right? The bottom corner of the strike zone. If I've got to go down and get that one, like that shows me that I'm actually advancing as a salesperson or as a hitter, right? When I can hit multiple home runs or singles, doubles, triples within that strike zone. And so I look at it and go, to me, acceptable in my company is I want a rep to have somewhere between 10 to 20% fallout before the service is received. So we got to talk about pre-service cancels and post-service. And I know pre-install and post-install, if we're talking about alarms or solar, like some of this is, hopefully this just jives the concept. Conceptually, this makes a lot of sense, but it's going to vary a little bit from industry to industry. So I want my rep who's out there selling 10 pest control accounts, I want him or her, I want them having 1 or 2 cancels. I'm okay with that. I want that. Because if they got 0, if they've sold 100 accounts and they have 0 cancels, like that bothers me. That bothers me, maybe not as much as if they sold 100 accounts and only 50 have been serviced. That really bothers me, because now we're talking about something where it's solidifying the sale. That's the kink in the hose. They're not hitting something in the solidifying the sale process. That's why 50% are falling out. I understand that 10 to 20%, again, before they've received that initial service, I understand those people having buyer's remorse, changing their mind. That's okay. That means you kind of push somebody to the edge and over the edge that maybe otherwise you wouldn't, or not everybody would have sold. That's okay if that's 1 in 10, 2 in 10. I can live with that. Now, after they've actually received the initial service, to me, it's got to be under 5%. Like that's just where it's got to be. It's got to be super low. Like I said, my 3rd year selling was my best retention. It was under 1%. selling 700 pest control accounts. Even at 5% of those 700, you know, I could have lived with, what is that, 35 cancels or whatever. I could live with that. That would be okay to me. So I kind of take two buckets with cancels and say, okay, what's happening pre-service, what's happening post-service, and then again, those shouldn't be measured the same. There's kind of two different things going on there.
Yeah.
When I talk about solidifying the sale, again, I'm not going to have time to go over all 13 points. And industry to industry, there is some variation. But let me give you like probably what I would feel like are the most important. We've all been there. If you sold some kind of a recurring service, and if you've gotten to the point of selling them, and I know we've all been here, okay? So I'm just going to be very frank with everybody here. You've gotten to the point and you're like, oh shiz, I know they're loving this idea of this, you know, $79 initial. They have no idea that I'm going to be billing them $50 a month hereafter. They don't like, I haven't really set that up yet. So how do I slide that in? So the first mistake there is when we talk about the value building section, right? Initial approach, qualifying, value building. When we get into value building, the one thing we have to do is what we have to do right there versus solidifying the sale is we have to do what I call my watering down techniques. And my watering down technique for pest control might sound something like this. Now, the cool thing, Miss Jones, so I'll interrupt myself as I'm going through a value build. Maybe it's as I transition from explaining what we do on the inside to the outside or vice versa. And I'll say, and the great thing that we do on the outside, and in fact, a lot of the neighbors have loved this, is I'm not signing you up on some 5-year service plan right now. We're just getting our starter program. So it's just going to be for the first 12 months. And the cool thing is what the neighbors have liked is I don't have to come out every single month. We just come out once a season for you. So I'm going to insert that actually in my value build to get in front of that so I'm not having to repair or kind of smooth over something during solidifying the sale. Because then when I get into solidifying the sale, going through proper expectations as far as what our service guarantees are, going through what our frequency is, what the price is, hopefully I've kind of laid the foundation there, because it goes back to what I talked about initially about controlling the conversation. Because it's very different if I haven't said something at this point of solidifying the sale and somebody asks me, oh wait, you're coming out what? You're coming out once a season? If they say that when I solidify the sale and I haven't addressed that, then I've got to do like this big huge repair, right? Like I got to like massage everything, and I'm trying to save the sale, and that's when I start to become a sales prostitute or whatever, and I'm saying all these. So versus if I can say, hey, yeah, like I mentioned before, we're not setting you up on anything where we come out every month. It's just the seasonal, like I mentioned. Now somebody looks at me and is like, oh yeah, that's my bad. Like, yeah, yeah, he mentioned that earlier. Yep, I remember him saying that. I've kept control of the conversation. So don't wait when you solidify the sale to start hammering down, you know, full price, frequency, you know, guarantees, like all these things. Do that before while you're value building, and it just helps the solidifying the sale process, and then it keeps you controlling the conversation as well. And it doesn't look like you're trying to like slip a fast one by somebody that they don't recognize or understand. Like you're actually really trying to be very open, honest, and communicate with them in full what the expectations are. And then the last thing with that, and again, time-wise, I just want to be sensitive to that. But the last thing with that is if you can set what kind of expectations after they've received their service, I think that's very important as well. So for pest control, for instance, I'm not going to say, hey, and the cool thing is after we do this first service, you'll never see a bug again. That's just awesome. But if you see one little ant, call me up and we'll come right back out, you know, the next day. Like I've just totally oversold the service, where I'd rather say something like, hey, the great thing is we're going to come out and do this first service. We're probably going to flush up a bunch of bug activity. You're just going to see bugs, like more. It's like when you buy the car, right? You buy a car that you've never seen on the road. You buy the car and then you see that car everywhere on the road. The minute I tell somebody you're going to probably see some bugs, they're going to see them. But instead of freaking out and calling me the next day, like, hey, Lenny, I saw an ant. You just came out yesterday. Like I'm going to set that proper expectation where it's like, yes, you're going to see ants for a couple of weeks. Now, after those 2 weeks, if you see abnormal ant activity, then I want you to call and we'll start those retreats. Now I've set up a proper expectation where if somebody sees something, they're not going to automatically blame me or my technician or the product or the company because they didn't get rid of every single bug and they promised that I'd never see a bug again when I got that first service, which we all know is virtually impossible. So just setting those proper expectations as you're solidifying the sale, I think is an important step as well.
Nuggets.
That's huge.
Beautiful.
I love it. Well, we did have one that asked, and I want to get to them. They've been very diligent in asking tips on staying locked in while on the doors, not taking breaks. I know we have so many distractions with our phones, taking a break, sitting down on the bench. How can they stay locked in, Lenny? What's your favorite tip?
So I think this goes back to, that's a great question, by the way. I think this goes back to like what are your goals? Like why are you out there? Here's a fascinating concept that I think a lot of you will relate to and be like, dang, that's me, or I never want to be that person. But here's what happens. When we're new and door to door, we go out hard and we go out and we remember isn't this funny, like new reps? Like you can ask them about their day and they'll tell you like all 50 conversations, they'll tell you exactly what happened. Oh, and this guy, and then he had his right leg out in front of his left leg, and then he pointed his finger, and they like know all these details, and you're like, what? But they are given every ounce of effort every single day. So your desire is here, but your capabilities or your abilities are down here to start. And then over time, what happens is you get better. And what we see is you get better, and then what happens to your desire and your work ethic? Boom, it starts going the other way. Now you get the rep that's like, I only have to go out in prime time because, I'm just him, and so I can go out and get my 3 or 4 accounts just in prime time. I don't need to work during the day. So if you want to be a rock star at this, if you want to be on the big stage, getting the trophies and being the guy, the gal, like you have to match those two. So as your abilities get better, your desire stays the exact same. You always have that desire. You always know what your goals are. I just can't relate to that because that's just not how I'm wired. And I realize that a lot of people are wired that way. But it's like, have that passion that you had when you first started. Just because you get better, don't let that passion slip. Because I see that every single year with reps, and it drives me insane. It's like you are too good to not be on the doors for those 7, 8 hours or whatever it is, to just grind it out because you're so good. Why would you do that? Why would you be so much better and give a half effort, right? Like that just doesn't make sense to me. So that's where I'd say a lot of that goes in my mind is my desire to be really good has always been super high, but my talent and my ability just keeps getting better as well. That doesn't make me slack off on my desire.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add to that is like when you talk about social media and that kind of stuff, when you break down the science of it, when you trigger social media when you're on the doors and you see that post from your buddy in high school that just is at Disneyland, or you see someone just passed away that you knew or whatever, your brain, I don't know, front, back of your brain, also, your brain goes everywhere else but on the doors. And it takes the next little bit to get back in. So whether that means you're now burning through the next 5, 6 doors, could have had a fastball right down the middle, could have had a lay down, but you're still trying to get back the word tracks and get back your intro and all the stuff that you kind of were in the zone. And so if you're whipping out your phone, social media is such a threat to your year, to your commission, to your paycheck, to the goals you have. Like if it means deleting it for a season or whatever it is, that is something that years ago didn't exist. When I first started knocking, it didn't matter. Social media didn't exist. So that is such a threat. I wanted to speak to that because when you see those different relationships you have on social, it takes time, and then it's like getting, like you said, a fastball right down the middle, and you're totally just we I don't know if you guys, I love baseball, so it's like you see a good player sometimes just strike out with a ball, like right, an easy hit, a hittable pitch. And if you're in the batter's box and you're not focused, like it's too hard to try to do like 5 things at once. So anyways, to add to what Lenny said, like I love the desire and the skill concept, because it just makes total sense and it's so true. But also the social media can eat you alive and totally steal your day and your commission, and that leads to burnout. So
And comparison is the thief of joy, right, Brad? Like when you start comparing yourself to everybody else, it just takes away what you're doing. Because honestly, like we all know, you know, your friend that's at Disneyland is paying 10 times the amount that you're making, because he's buying the ice cream and the corn dogs and going all in with the lightsabers. But at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're building something. And I think that's what makes door to door so awesome is that, I mean, before I started in door to door, I was working in a warehouse for a lock and supply company. I was pulling orders. Man, I was making the same hourly that the dude next to me was making, and he was taking 3 smoke breaks an hour, pulling half the orders. When our checks came, they were the same. And it pissed
Yeah.
me off. And so
And
when
that,
I got introduced to commission and door to door, I'm like, dude, I can freaking go make what I'm worth. Like nobody's gonna outwork me, out hustle me. I'm just gonna go do my thing. And I think that's the beauty of what this industry is all about.
yeah, 100%. And the guy that's at Disneyland, you know, maybe he works that lock job and he just spent the last 4 years busting his tail to try to save up enough money to take his family. And you've got such a better opportunity, but you're in the middle of a hardship. It's hot, it's cold, it's just got to cancel whatever. You're going through a ton of no's. In that moment, your brain's going to say, "Man, I wish I was at Disneyland. I
Yeah.
wish I was there." You'll even see stuff of someone that's going through something hard, or and you'll wish that you were doing something that you would never want to do. Man, I wish, I remember not you'd see the guy delivering UPS packages, or someone's out scooping their dog poop in their front yard or whatever, and you're like, "Oh, I wish I was doing that." Like your brain's gonna try to take you to those, and so it will already do that with the UPS guy and the guy washing his car and the stuff like. So don't give yourself a million of those by going into social. So I just can't say it enough. Like the social will destroy you and your reps. Um, you know, so anyways, there's a million ways how you can handle that. Deleting the app, deleting it. I had reps that deleted it before they knocked. They re-downloaded it at night. Everybody's gonna do it different, but whatever you have to do to just like get rid of that. So let's go with one more question, Jess, and then let's or let
Totally.
yeah.
I'm going to pop up our QR codes, guys, while we wrap up. So there's a couple here. If you want to learn more about RepCard, you're looking to track your sales, let us know. We want to help you out. And then Lenny's got some of his QR codes up here as well. We're always looking to up level, to train, and he has given us some fire. Everyone's talking about all the nuggets they've received today. So guys, yeah, one more question. Let's take another question from the audience and scan away. Anyone else have a last question for us?
And I'll say while we're putting that question in, and thank you for this opportunity, you guys. Like this has been awesome. Anytime I can get in front of reps to me is important. One thing that all of you need to have, and I know Brad knows about this, is my app. It's 100% free. It's got hours of content. It's called Ask Lenny. Make sure you and your reps have it. And the idea with Ask Lenny is, rather than go to your team lead or your manager or owner who's busy, who doesn't have time to answer the same exact question a million times, like you just ask me. Like I've got it all in this app. And again, it's 100% free to reps. So I would definitely
Ask Lenny. Go to the App Store. It's green and yellow. You can't miss it. It says Ask Lenny right on the app screen. So, or app icon. So
What
grab.
a resource to have, that you guys can just ask a question at any point and get an answer from Lenny. It's going to pull from all of his wealth of knowledge. That's incredible. So I think that's the biggest thing. Like we can add with that, but you guys have been in door to door, Brad, you and Lenny, for such a long time. And the number one thing is just to never stop, never stop training, never stop learning. You're always looking for that leg up and how to get the next sell. So give us your last tip on training, Lenny, and how you continue to keep sharpening your knife.
Yeah, I think just be open, right? Like I still knock doors with new reps, right? They're like my kids' age, my oldest kid's age now. And I'm like, I never go into an experience, even like with a situation like this, it's like I want to learn. I'm an open book to learning and to growing and to becoming better. Maybe I hear an analogy from a brand new rep that I was like, holy cow, I've never even thought about it like that. I think if you're just open to learning and open to understanding, that door to door is not a game you just figure out. It's not a puzzle where you put that last pieces and you're like, woo, I made it. Like it's an ongoing thing, like most of life is, right? It's an ongoing process of learning, of growing, of being better, learning how to connect with people, and just ultimately learning how to like increase the ease or the value of what you're selling to help somebody in their life, to just take that off of them, or supplement what they're doing, and just at the end of the day provide somebody with something that's going to make their life easier or better.
100%. I love that. Hey, everyone is just saying thank you. So Lenny, with that, we will let everyone jump off. Thanks so much for spending your day with us. And again, this will be put up in a RepCard app. It will go into the training library. So if you guys want to play it back, you can check it out there. We're super excited about the Ask Lenny app and RepCard, you guys. So lots more coming. There's more webinars coming up. We're going to be doing these twice a month. So about every other week, you'll see us on these webinars with some incredible guests, just like Lenny, and always improving our training library. So we're super excited to have everyone, and go crush the summer sales. Let's get it.
Go. Thanks, Lenny. Appreciate your time.
Knock on.